Today's class will be good. Excellent. So today's class, we're going through the reports, like I said. And if I share my screen now, we shall get cracking. Entire screen, best. Can everybody see my mouse? Can you see my mouse moving around here on this presentation? Someone shout out yes, because I can't see your pictures.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, thanks. And by the way, when I'm doing this presentation, when you're seeing my screen, I can't see you. So if you put your hand up or nod your head, I don't. So yeah, just give me a shout if you can. There's no problem with doing that. So in the TeamKinetic system, there is loads of reports, as some of you are probably aware. They're mainly broken up into kind of reports which are actions required. Bear in a second, someone's just joined us. Get out of that. Next. Okay, so the reports are broken up into action required, maintenance. So action required, so it's telling you, oh, by the way, you might need to do something about this. Maintenance, which is, there's not many, I think there's a couple in maintenance, where it's just basically trying to keep your data clean and accurate and reportable, which I'll come on to in a bit more detail what I mean by reportable. Then we've got general awareness of activity. So that's kind of, all right, what's happening, how your volunteer program's getting on in terms of registrations and this, that, and the other, and how much activity is going on out there on the ground in terms of volunteering. We've also got marketing and comms reports. Trying to identify people who meet a particular criteria to kind of target your communication to them. So maybe you've got a big summer sports event going on. You might say, well, who out of my volunteers are interested in sports? And there's ways you can target, or you can identify who those people are. We've also got geographical reports, so seeing where they come from, obviously geographically on the map. And you can even look at things like, where people come from who have gone on particular opportunities. We've also got custom reports, which means that basically if any of the other reports above are not suffice, and it's something which a report you have to generate regularly. Now, this is nearly always kind of reports for the board, I tend to find, when it's custom reports. If it's a report, if you said, oh, I really do see this particular report, and I looked at it and I've looked at this many times, and I say, well, that's useful for everybody. I could see that as being a very useful and interesting report for the majority of our customers. Then we would just put it into the build, as long as you're happy to wait a little bit, and it would just be built and put in as a standard report. If it was something like, okay, we need to know for our particular organization, the board need to know how many men have got a size 7 shoe and who are left-footed and like playing tennis with a right hand, whatever it is, some very specific kind of specific thing that would only relate to you and your organization and what your board are after, then that they tend to end up being custom reports. For that reason, they're chargeable, because obviously we have to pay someone to actually build the report. But I'll come on to that in a bit more detail. Download data is the final one. So at any point, because you are the data controllers, you can obviously download the data to an Excel spreadsheets, and there's different formats you can download that to. And then you can kind of interrogate the data as you wish. So moving swiftly on, the first ones I mentioned were ones where there's action required. So when you first log into the system, okay, the first page that opens up usually looks something like this here. Okay, so you've got your providers waiting for access, chat messages, and what's been happening since you last logged on. Okay, so from the summary tab, this is telling you kind of definite things that you need to do. As I said, actions are required. So and it does depend on the setup of your system. So does anybody here have a system where they need to authorize providers before the providers can go on and kind of create live opportunities?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mine's like that.
Yep, it's yours like that. I think a lot of systems are like that, to be fair. Okay, so that would be, sorry, get back to it. So for those, if you've got that switched on, then you're going to see this pane appear. This panel, it literally won't appear at all if you don't have that switched on. If you say they're automatically given access, then you won't see this panel at all. If you said for volunteers, you said, well, I need to mark the volunteers as giving them access before they can get any opportunity. Then again, you would see another pane just like this, another little window, which would say volunteers waiting for access, and it appear over here somewhere. So you are going to see slightly different screens depending on how you've set up your system in the super admin settings, the options within super admin settings. So the onboarding process of your volunteers, that's what we're talking about there, and your providers, whether you grant them access automatically or not. And obviously, if you do need to grant them access, then you're going to see those windows appearing. You've also got chat messages. Does anyone use chat messages? Feel free to shout out.
No.
I fail to believe there's no one on here who uses chat messages. That's about half our customers do. Statistically, there should be at least 3 of you.
Yeah, we use them, but I mean, I tend to just email them back rather than message through the system.
Ah, right, okay, that's fine. It's down to you, your own kind of internal processes. So if it works better for you, that's no problem. So what this is showing is quite clever. It's chat messages since you last logged on. So for those who don't know, there's the ability within the super admin menu options again, okay, where you can set up mini chat rooms on opportunities. Okay, and the only people who can take part in those chats are the people on that opportunity. Actually, the only people who can see the chats are the people on the opportunity. And it's the only time we actually allow a volunteer to communicate directly with another volunteer. Or it's not directly, I suppose, because it's on a forum. But you get the idea. The only way a volunteer can communicate at all with another volunteer is via the chat rooms. And it's usually, it allows the volunteers to ask questions about opportunities. Is anyone taking waterproof clothing tomorrow and things like that? And other volunteers can say, yes, it's best to, or no, it's okay, they provide it when they're there. So the only people who can do anything in the chat rooms is the volunteers who are on that opportunity. You can see that opportunity chat room, and also the provider can obviously see who's providing the opportunity. They can see their conversation spot and they can be part of that conversation. So this is, and obviously admins is the final point. Admins who can see and do everything on the system. You can also see any kind of chat room and be part of that chat if you want to. And this is showing you'll see this quite often. It's showing you chats that have happened since you last logged on. So the system knows when you're last logged in as admin, and it will say, oh, you haven't seen these messages. That's what that pops up there. Okay. We've also got opportunities that end in the last 7 days. I think that's the tasks. Okay. So this opportunity is because it's a test system. It's called sessional, but it may be like under 15s football coach or whatever it is in your system. And you can see if they're about to end. So it's a flexible opportunity if the end date is within 7 days, or then it will appear in here. If it is a session-based opportunity, i.e. it's got a rota to it, like every Wednesday night or something like that for a whole year, 52 sessions, then once it gets near that last 7 days before that last session, then it's going to appear within this list in here. Okay, now providers do actually get an email depending on your setup, but it's defaulted to on unless you turn it off. So I think it'll be on for most of you. But they do get an email when the opportunity is 7 days from ending, telling them, by the way, this opportunity is ending. You might want to add more sessions, or you might want to extend the end date, for example. This allows you to see it as well as an admin. Any questions over that so far? Good. Okay. Next, we've got there's lots of reports on here when you're using specific functions. So does anyone use meetings within the system? Meetings?
Nope.
Nope.
No.
Not aware that you can record meetings in the system?
No.
No.
Nope. Okay. All right. There's a few things. I'm going to click. I've got a feeling there's a few people here who are probably not aware that these functions are available in there. It's been quite a while since they're training, or maybe they haven't had training. But okay, so you can create meetings for volunteers or groups of volunteers within the system. And when you go to volunteer management and down to meetings, the meetings would appear here. You can do it pretty easy by, I'll be going in directly to a volunteer, like Steve, volunteer here. I can click on inductions and meetings. Under the meetings side here, I can add a meeting, put in the time, the day and the time, put some details, say whether it's virtual or face-to-face. So I might say, oh yeah, this is the Google link. It is to the meeting. Put in a message that I want to send and book a meeting. Okay, so I booked the meeting in there. Once you've got a meeting booked in, you will have multiple meetings booked in if you start using it. Then when you go down to meetings here, you see it appearing across here. Okay. You can also add mass meetings, like to add a meeting for multiple volunteers at the same time. Maybe it's some kind of induction or something like that. By going to the search volunteers page, and when the volunteers come up, you can select the volunteers you want to add to a meeting. Like I want to add Abdul, Alex, and Annette. And down here under the actions, the blue actions bar, book meeting, and I can do the same thing. That's going to book the same meeting for all those 3 people. Okay, so if you use the meetings, then you'll need to use the meetings page, meetings kind of report, which is this one here. And it's the same for a number of for all of these functions listed down here. So we've got roles on there. Some of you may use roles. For those of you who are not aware what a role is a set of hoops that a volunteer has to go through before they can get onto an opportunity. Okay, so you might say I have a driving role, which means I have to see their driving license and I have to give them a tour of the minibus that they're going to be driving and blah, 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 blah. There's set hoops. You have to sign a health and safety form, but there's a set of hoops they have to go through. And only once they've gone through those hoops and completed it, and I've marked them, I've approved them on that role, would they be able to get onto that driving opportunity then? Okay, so that's what roles are. And there's a role, you can see role applications, volunteer management, role applications down here. Okay. We've then got login all hours. Be quite an interesting one. Do any of you have to log hours on behalf of the providers?
No.
Well, if you do, I'll just quickly take you through because it might be because you're not aware that you can do it. So those who don't know, when it comes to logging the hours, the volunteers log hours and the providers also log hours, and they should be the same. The volunteer goes litter picking on a Sunday afternoon and does 4 hours. Then the provider goes in there and logs 4. I said, yes, they did do 4 hours. It doesn't matter which order it's recorded in. Okay. And in all honesty, the one we care about is what the provider says. That's the trustworthy one. That's the one that drives all the reports within the system. Sometimes, though, providers don't log the hours, and quite often you'll see a volunteer will log their 4 hours and then they'll actually hassle the provider and say, because they can see that the provider hasn't logged the hours and kind of confirm the hours, and they will hassle them and get them to log their hours. Other times they may not, and the provider might just get away with it not logging the hours. Obviously, you want them to log the hours for many reasons, mainly to so you can measure the success of your volunteer program. The key reason. But there is, when you log hours as an admin, you're logging them on behalf of the provider. Okay, not the volunteer. You're logging them, which is the important one. Okay, and you could do that by going into any opportunity and going to log hours. So I go to an opportunity here. This opportunity happens to be called flexible. And if I go down to log hours, I can log hours here. Give them rating, rank them, so I can log hours, and I'm logging hours on behalf of the provider here. You can also, if rather than going into each individual opportunity to do that, you can also go down to the log all hours here, which says, okay, then here's all the volunteers you could potentially want to log hours for. Okay. Now, when you're logging hours, it's always easier. You've got your session opportunities and you've got your flexible opportunities. So the session-based ones are the ones with a rota, where you know exactly what days they're turning up. And then the flexible one means, okay, well, it started last week and it goes on for another year, and you're just going to log the hours as and when you go along. Well, if you think about that from your side in terms of logging hours, provider hours, it's okay for the session ones. You say, well, if the volunteer was on the session, I can just make an assumption that they turned up. They were on that session, the session happened, and I'm going to assume that they turned up for it. And you can log those hours through this page here. That's for the session-based ones. For the flexible ones, well, obviously, we don't know when the volunteer is meant to be turning up, because there is no session dates. There's no like, oh, it's every Tuesday night for the whole year, so it knows it's every Tuesday they should have turned up there. There's no session dates for a flexible opportunity, as I explained before. So you're left with, okay, then the only thing you can rely on is what the volunteer says they've done. So for the flexible opportunities, it will look at it and say, well, the volunteers logged 3 hours that you haven't matched. So I'm going to show 3 hours over here, potentially, that you can log to kind of do your provider login hours side of things. Okay, but this allows you to log them in mass. So if you ever think, oh, I've got to stay on top of this, loads of providers are dragging their feet here, go to this report here. You can leave the same piece of feedback and it will apply it to all the volunteers, and you can log them in mass in a much faster time. Any questions over that? Hours? Yeah, good. Okay, I won't go through all these. We've got expenses on there. There's a new expenses module, by the way, just for those of you who didn't know, where you can actually allows volunteers to upload their receipts onto the system and put in their bank details, and you can have that information in a report and make those payments if you require. So it's all kind of done within the system. So if it's something, if you do pay expenses and you weren't aware of that feature, then have a look at the expenses feature. References. Does anyone here use references? Not many tend to use references. Oh, you do? Okay. Same with the references. So these are all specific things. So with the references, for example, part of the process of you create a reference form, you say this opportunity requires that reference form, volunteer goes to get on the opportunity, and it asks them for their referee's email address, sends an email off to the referee. They fill out the form. Is the person trustworthy? Yes. How do you know this person? Oh, they're an old work colleague, whatever it is. They fill out the questions, they submit it back. But the point of them submitting it back, then the admin needs to authorize or approve or kind of unapprove the reference. Okay, you need to say whether it's okay, the reference is acceptable or not. I forget the wording that we use. And in which case, that's your references page down here. Okay, so that's where the admin does their part, where they say, okay, then I've got to receive the reference here. Are the answers adequate? Yes, it says they're trustworthy, blah, blah, blah. I'll approve it. Okay, so that's the references. Hour trades. Anyone not aware what an hour trade is?
I've never heard of it on TeamKinetic.
Okay.
No, new to me.
An hour trade is I'm just going to talk you roughly at a very high level what these things are. So I'm going to plant the seed and then you can look into a bit more detail if you think it's going to suit you. So an hour trade is the ability for volunteers to exchange their logged hours for a discount on a training course or a free t-shirt or whatever you want it to be. Okay, so it turns the logged hours into a form of currency in a way that they can exchange for, say, for things. Now, the problem I always find with the hour trades is the logistics. If you say give you a discount, a voucher for a free cup of coffee, that's not so bad. You give them the voucher, email it to them, whatever. If you say I'm going to give you a free t-shirt, it's like, how do you get that t-shirt to that volunteer? So that often kind of puts people off the logistical side of it. But it is in there if you're interested. It tends to be easy, like say discounts for courses, a free cup of coffee voucher, things like that. It's a bit easier for you to logistically manage. So if you had 10 hours and I saw an hour trade, which I get a free t-shirt worth 5 hours, I could exchange out of my 10 hours, I could exchange 5 of them for that free t-shirt. You'd send me the free t-shirt. I've then got 5 hour trades left to exchange now because I've already used 5. It won't affect your reports. It doesn't mean it kind of removes their hours from your reports. It just converts, it kind of duplicates their logged hours into these thing called hour trades. Achievement badges. So which people have these achievement badges, the more hours they log, the higher badge level they get. It's built in, you've all got it switched on. There's no way to switch it off. Not that there'd be any reason to switch off. But so when they log 5 hours, they become an achiever. When they log 20 hours, they become a high achiever, whatever you've set your badges up to. And you can see which people have achieved each of those badges with under reporting achievement badges there. Quick click, see is anybody one person on that level 2. So you can see that this is what they've been named to achiever, dedicated, superfly champions, and Hall of Famer. And by clicking on each of these, you can see which people are on each level. That's quite interesting. And criminal checks is the last one. So obviously, if you deal with criminal checks, then you need to see the report of okay, which criminal checks need to be approved or denied. And that comes under volunteer management down to criminal checks. Sure it's in here somewhere. Not the wrong page here, aren't you, Steve? Reporting criminal checks. Okay, and from here I can see okay which DBS applications have a sent off, but we've not got back, which DBSs are about to expire, and which ones have expired. So you can see the volunteers will be listed down here. Okay, so they are your specific reports on specific functions. And the reason why I group them together is because it depends if you're using them or not. If you're not using meetings, roles, expenses, references, hour trades, achievement badges, or criminal checks, then there's no point, you don't have any reason to actually go into those reports. Whereas there's other reports like the ones here, okay, where they're more commonly used, and really all of our customers would use them. Then we go on to our maintenance reports. Okay. Does anyone know what an activity tag is?
No.
No.
Someone here knows. I know someone here. I'm going to pick on someone.
Are those the tags that you put on the roles so that it sticks out when it's searched? Is that what you mean by tags?
Yeah,
so like,
exactly.
this role is, I don't know, environmental or something.
Exactly that, yeah. So if I go and create an opportunity now, I'll show you the page and it'll ring a few bells. This is a dual language system, hence why it's got, so don't worry about that too much. The fact it's got 2 boxes for everything. And there's a bit down here which says activity, pick a location. Oh, wait, there, have I gone past it? I've gone past it here, Steve. The first page. So when you're creating the opportunity on the very first page, you're putting in the opportunity name and description. And down the bottom here, we've got search tags. These are activity tags. So essentially, it's like search words. So if I was doing an opportunity called netball coach, or I say football coach, I might tag it with the word soccer. The reason being is someone who's searching on the system might search for the word soccer, and I'd want it to still bring up that opportunity. Even though soccer doesn't appear within the name or the description, it just says football, I know that someone could type in soccer. So by tagging it with soccer, it means if they search, typing in the word soccer into the search bar, it will still bring up that opportunity. I said that quick. Did anyone not understand that? Good. Okay, so so that's your search tags. Now the problem you find is as you're typing in these search tags, so say I type in, I'm using a test system when you're demoing it's a data. So when I'm on search tags here and I start typing in administrator, for example, as I'd start typing it in, it would appear over the right hand side over here. Okay, if it had been used before, administrator tag. Now, I want to try and keep the tags similar if I can. So if I have one that says admin, one that says admins, one that says administrator, okay, then I could just say, well, they're all admin. I'm just going to call them all admin and group them together. The reason why I might want to group them together is because there's reports on activity tags. So you can say how many opportunities have been tagged with the word soccer, and it can tell you, or how many opportunities have been tagged with the word admin, and it can tell you. Now, obviously, that's a problem if you've got some opportunities that are tagged with admin, some are admins, some are administrator, some administrator, because I've hit the key too many times. That you can't report on that. The system doesn't know that they all mean the same thing unless you regroup them together, which brings me on to our first maintenance report. So when you're in reporting, activity tags, on one, Steve. No, opportunities and providers, activity tags, activity tags. Brings up this page where I can see all the tags that have been typed in. And by selecting one, I could say, oh, right, well, try and find 2 that are the same. I could say tag 1, for example, is the same, replace it with this, and I can find another tag. So say a tag 1, it said admin, I can find administrator in this drop down list, click on it, and then replace with this, and then it's going to make them all the same. It's going to regroup them, reword that tag, which means that when you're going into reports and you're looking at your reports and analysis, there's a report there just for activity tags, which would then make sense because they've all been grouped and aligned appropriately. It's quite a hard concept to try and portray to other people. I always find that one. Does anyone not understand that? Does anyone need me to quickly go over that? Okay, silence is good.
Fine.
Okay, yeah, is that okay? Okay, good. All right, so that is your so activity tags. So those of you, if you haven't cleaned up your activity tags after this session, it might be worth having a look at them. Opportunities and providers, down to opportunity activity tags. Click on the drop down, see what your tags are there, see if you can kind of regroup them if you think necessary. Okay, then we've got general awareness. Oh God, general awareness of activity. So this is your kind of your first page that opens up when you log into the system, which is this one here. Okay, so general awareness is, okay, well, how many volunteers have registered on the system? How many providers have registered? How many have logged hours, for example? How many opportunities are open on the system? So it's giving you a general awareness. Okay, is there things for the volunteers to be able to get onto? Is my registrations, are they going up? Am I getting more providers on board, etc.? And there's a load of them. I won't go through all of these. You'll see them on the document, which you may have downloaded. If not, I'll email it over to everybody anyway. Some of the key ones are the day schedule. People don't tend to know about that one. So if you go into reports and analysis, reporting and down to day schedule, this is a really good report to see kind of what's happening in the next X days. By default, it will say the next 7 days it will pick up. And it will show you on these yellow boxes, you'll see a list of all the opportunities, okay, which are taking place in the next 7 days. And they'll appear within there. And you'll also see how many volunteers are on those opportunities. So it gives you an idea. Okay, I can see which I've got 3 different types of opportunities going on the next 7 days, and I can see I've got one there, and there's no people turning up for it. And I wonder if I should promote that one because that's taking place in a couple of days. So it gives you an idea, a snapshot of where you need to kind of focus your energy to make sure that things are going to fall into place over the next few days. Okay, you can pick it by opportunity if you want to, or by event there if you want to, and obviously you can change the days if you want it longer than 7 days. But this is the kind of thing you should do first thing on a Monday morning. Look at your day schedule report, see what's going on. Okay. Right, we got next. General KPIs. So these are usually KPIs for the board. Does any of you have to report to a board? Like you have to generate a report and hand it on to the powers that be.
Yeah.
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 So these, a lot of you do, don't you? I mean, quite a few of you do. I'd say over half of our customers do. And it's usually about pulling down additional funding, or just to show that that you're doing what you're meant to be doing in terms of you're monitoring the success of your volunteer program. The key ones are, well, all these kind of key reports that they're after tend to be under the reports and analysis. Okay, so if you click on reports and analysis, it takes a while it takes the longest to load up this report, just because there's a lot on there, in all honesty.
Okay.
So we've got our reports analysis. These are your key KPIs. Then when you look into them, we have a bar at the top here, all-time stats. So on this system, there's been 13 registrations, 29 confirmed hours. That means provider hours. If you're ever not sure, if you click on there, it tells you what they mean. But that means provider logged hours. So that means that they've been confirmed. How many opportunities have been created on your system, whether they're open or closed, or doesn't make a difference. How many sessions make up those opportunities? How many volunteers are active? How many have been converted? And how many have gone on to log hours and join multiple opportunities? Okay, now we have exactly the same down here, but these stats down here are looking at the date range. So you can say, that's interesting. I'm interested in these stats, but I only want to know about for the last 12 months. Okay, we can just do that down here, put the months there. So let me go through some of these. Okay, so registrations, I think that's pretty obvious to everyone, isn't it? What a registration is. Okay, a volunteer registration. Confirmed hours, we know what that is. That's when a provider's logged out. Even if none of your volunteers have logged any hours, as long as your providers have gone in there and actually logged the hours and said, yes, the volunteer did do 4 hours this week, then you will see them appearing within those confirmed hours. The provider says the volunteer has done. Number of opportunities, self-explanatory. Same with sessions. Active. So this is the number and percentage of volunteers that have joined a session or logged hours on a flexible op. Okay, it's always quite hard, the active one. People say quite often we have to do, when we do kind of custom reports, quite quite often they'll say to me, okay, I want a list of volunteers. I want to know how many are active. So what do you mean by active? You know, they're out there doing volunteering. But it's only when you dig a bit deeper, you realize it's not as straightforward as you think to try to identify that. I mean, ideally, they'd have someone on the ground going around saying, oh, yeah, there's Joe Blogs over there, and they're active. So I mark them down, tick their box. Obviously, that's not possible. So we have to look at the information we've got in the system to be able to define judge whether somebody is active or not. The way that the system, when we talk about active, it's that same definition throughout. It's if the volunteer, if I said which people have been active this month, then I would say classify that as any volunteer who's been on any session within an opportunity where the session takes place within the month. Makes sense. You assume they turned up for it. You know, if it's a flexible opportunity, it's harder, isn't it? If you think about it, how does that work? If it's a flexible opportunity, well, it started last year and it ends next year. I don't know whether they turn up this month or not. The only way you would know whether they turn up this month is if there were hours logged within that month. So for flexible opportunities, we look at when the hours were logged. Okay, because when you go to log hours on a flexible opportunity, you're also putting a date next to those hours. Okay, so we look at hours that have been logged on flexible opportunities within the date range. Okay, so session-based opportunities, we look at the date of the session. Flexible opportunities, we look at when the hours were logged against. Okay, but it falls within the last month, and brilliant. That's gonna they're going to be classified as being active within that month. Any questions over that? Okay.
Should the top number match the bottom number? So like, you know, on all time stats and then quick stats by date range, if you've got it on that open long period, should they not match top to bottom?
They should do. This is test data on this system, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I wouldn't know much confidence in, you know, them aligning or reconciling back to one another. But yeah, yours should, yeah. And
Yeah, there's a little bit of a margin between a few of them, and I'm just trying to work out why that would be.
raise that as a support. I don't want to go through it now with
No, of course not. But that's why I was just like, if it should, then there's an issue, so I'll get it looked at. So.
Yeah, if you can, yeah. There might be something. Just put in a really wide date in here. Make sure you're putting a really wide date here, so you're absolutely capturing everything without question.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and if it doesn't, then just raise that as a support ticket, and I'll look out for it this afternoon. I'll get onto it. Okay, so that is. Somebody put their hand up. I heard a ping then. 1 second, bear me a second. Might be someone trying to get in. Oh, it's someone trying to get in. Okay. Get back onto here. Okay, so we've looked at registrations, confirmed hours, which are provider logged hours, opportunities, sessions, active. Then we look at converted. Converted volunteer is one that's not only registered, but they've joined at least one opportunity. So all the time you're trying to push them from registration to being converted. Then ideally, once they're actually on an opportunity, they go and log their hours, which means they appear in this box here. And ideally, once they've logged their hours, then they go and join another opportunity. So you're pushing them from left to right, from this field across to here, then here, then here, then here. And that's essentially what you're trying to do with all your volunteers. Okay.
What does the brackets mean on all of those? Like, what do they stand for?
Percentage. So active means out of your total of 13 volunteers, 23% have been active within. I've been active on this. This is a test system, so you know, read too much.
What about the 26 next to the 29? What does on the confirmed hours?
I think that's volunteer. You know, that's a very good question. I think it's volunteer. This is the total number of hours logged, including anonymized hours from deleted volunteers. Okay. So because this is a test system, you've got a lot of deleted volunteers on there. Now, when you delete a volunteer in the system, obviously you don't want to delete all of their logged hours as well. You know, if Joe Blogs has logged 1,000 hours, then they say, and they can ask to be removed, as they always can, GDPR, data protection, this and the other says they can be removed and not out the system. But we can't completely remove them, because if we completely remove them, then you'd lose that 1,000 hours and you'd no longer have that recorded in any of your reports. So what we do is we anonymize their data, so no one, even us, can even find out who that person is. And that's what that's showing you there. Out of those 29 hours, 26 of them have been anonymized, so you won't be able to reconcile them back to an exact volunteer because they've been deleted for whatever reason. Yours won't be. If anything, you probably won't have them on there. It probably won't even see the brackets at all. If you do, it'll be very low. just because of the competitiveness that's so high.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, so that is quick stats, date ranges. I've been through that. There's a load of other things on here in terms of like general KPIs. So if I went down to like active volunteers, I could see, you know, the gender distributions, ethnicity distributions, age groups, and this, that, and the other. So you can specify, you know, you can see the data related to all of those. Again, with all these reports, you can put in date ranges if you're interested. I want to know which volunteers registered in the last 12 months, and I want to see the KPI data on them. We'll change the dates. That's what you'll get. Okay. We have listed down here ethnicity, gender. Yeah, okay. We also have opportunities related to application analytics. So this shows you how many volunteers have actually looking at the front page of your system. Okay, I just realised I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I've started explaining this report now. I'm just going to plow on. Should have gone to this a bit later on. But I'll tell you, this report here, very powerful report. It tells you how many people are actually looking at the front page. Well, not in the front page of your system, looking at your system at all. Okay, so what you'd expect if you'd done a big promotional drive out there and you wanted to see how many people, you know, did it affect the amount of people who landed on our website? This is the report you'd look at. Okay, and you'll see peaks and troughs, and you'll see most of your systems see peaks during the week, and you'll see a trough at the weekends. You'll see a trough around July time. You tend to find people on summer holidays and around Christmas time. Same reason. But yes, it's all about seeing how many people are going to land on your site. It doesn't matter whether they landed on the front page of your site or whether you've promoted an opportunity and they've gone straight to an opportunity page. It doesn't make a difference. It's all recorded. It's all driven by Google Analytics. If any of you have ever heard of Google Analytics on there, you can zoom into specific regions. Like you might say, I was really interested in October time of 2022, and I can zoom in there, and it's going to zoom in. Obviously, give me a zoom into that particular date range. If I hover my mouse over, I don't know if you can see this, but it shows me how many page views, visitor, and visits. So the next natural question that people who haven't used Google Analytics before is, what do you mean by page views, visitor, and visits? Page views, how many individual pages they've looked at. They may have landed on your front page of your system and then gone, oh, it's not for me, and then closed it down. That's one page view. They may have landed on your system and then logged in and then looked at 5 opportunities and then, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, that person may have looked at 10 pages. So that's your page views. That's the red line. You then got visitors, which is the green line. Tells you here, the green line. So visitors is independent people who have looked at the site. That's usually the one that you're most interested in all honesty. So how many unique people, I don't care if they've spent ages looking at it or they've just looked at one web page, how many unique visitors have I had to my TeamKinetic system? And we've also got visits on there. So visits is how many independent, if they go there, look at the system, then go away, then come back the next day, that's 2 visits. If you can actually click on these keys, if I remember correctly, which highlight particular lines and give you the stats on particular lines there, if you're interested in doing that. And we have our kind of main KPIs. Has anybody here used Google Analytics at all? Have you used it in the past?
No.
No? Okay. Well, it's usually very interesting for your marketing and comms teams, okay, because they're the ones who need to promote the system, obviously.
Steve, can you see like what particular pages they've visited, or does
No,
it not?
you know what? Someone asked me this the other day, and I've put a request through to add that on as a statistic against opportunities. I think it's a great idea. I forget who came up with it. I think it was like a week or 2 ago. Someone came up with that exact idea, and I was like, you know what? I think that's a brilliant idea. So I've put the request through. So hopefully you're going to see that in the next couple of months, that appearing. But
Right.
I mean, you can. There is I think what you're getting at is you'd like to see a list of all the opportunities in a big list and say this is how many people have looked at them with a stat next to each of those opportunities. What we have at the moment is you can go into an individual opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
If I go into an opportunity now, I can see that same report, that analytical report for individual opportunities, which is great and it has its uses. if the opportunity is doing well. Very hard to analyze lots of opportunities at once, though. You've got to go to each one of them individually, which obviously takes you a lot longer. So let me just quickly show you. I've got one with some volunteers on it. Maybe one here. So this is the report. It's a flatlined. Find a system with some data in. It's a flatline report, but this is where the report appears in here. Let me just the system with some data in. I'll go to an opportunity on here. Okay, there's a bit of data in there, and again, you can zoom in and you can see which people, how many people have viewed that particular report. But I know what you mean. What you mean is, I want to see a list of all of them and say, well, which ones are super popular that everyone's clicking on, and which ones is no one clicking on, without going into them individually. In itself, this is still a very powerful report to see. As you can imagine, it's like, well, why is no one joining this opportunity? If you clicked on here and saw that there was 20 people and looked at it, actually gone to view that report, then you say, well, it's not the title, because obviously the title is intriguing them and they're clicking on it. It's something else. Maybe I've restricted it too much. Maybe there's something in the description, buried near the bottom of the description, which is putting them off. But it gives you some level of insight.
I was thinking, because like in December, I was just looking at my own, and in December it goes really high. I was just wondering what happened in December that made it go, like the visits go really high. So yeah, is there any way to kind of find out that information, or was it looking at the opportunities? Was
it a particular opportunity that went really high, or was it the whole?
I don't know. It just looked that it just peaks really high.
Ah, right. So under the reports and analysis, that the main one, which shows the whole system. Yeah. Yeah, you know, weirdly, I was talking about this yesterday to one of the developers. I had a customer who that it dropped off. They looked at 2022 in October in 2022, and it dropped off slightly compared to 2023. They were saying, well, why is that the case? I mean, it could be just simply that, you know, there's less opportunities on there available. That's why, you know, there's obviously less people, less interest. But one of the things that I spoke about is the ability to potentially see where volunteers are coming from, you know, from the Google Analytics, see where they came from to land on your site. So maybe your site's been advertised on a website that you're not aware of, and that's what's driving the traffic there. So we were chatting about that, and that's something that you may see in the near future, because I think that'd be a really useful report. It's just whether we can get it out of the Google Analytics and actually get it to a place, you know, to actually make it appear within the system. So that's what they're looking into now. But yeah, you find that useful? Anyone else find that useful?
Yeah,
I bet there's a few out there. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okie doke.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, no problem. So against the opportunities, sticking with those opportunities reports, we looked at the analytics. Okay, looked at that. Then I'm going to look at individual opportunities. So if I went into a specific opportunity, find one with some people on. I'm looking at the wrong system again. We're going to the one with some data in. I look at a specific opportunity, retail shop on here, then I can see reports, and I can see how many people are looking at the opportunity. As I said, I should say, when I say looking at the opportunity, what I mean by that, people sometimes say in training to me, well, what do you mean by looking at it, Steve? I mean, you're not tracking their eyeballs, and you're right, we're not tracking their eyeballs. That's coming later. But we do track what opportunities they click into. What I mean by that is, if I click on search here as a volunteer and I scroll down, oh, there's an opportunity. It doesn't know whether my eyeballs are staring at this opportunity, but it does know if I click to look at more information on this bit here. Okay, so if I click on there, now it's recorded the fact that I've looked at that opportunity, and that is going to affect this report here. Does that make sense? Yeah, we should do.
Yeah.
Okay. The KPI reports beneath it, again, these are all related to the opportunity. Everything on this page, all the side menus, all the reports, all these Google Analytics stuff is always related to that specific opportunity. Okay. So that's your opportunities reports. So sometimes it's interesting, what kind of people go on this type of opportunity? And it's sometimes interesting seeing the kind of, you know, the gender spread, etc., the age distributions for particular opportunities. Okay, So that is the opportunities event. Yep. Oh, you've also got it not just against opportunities. You can do exactly the same thing against events. So those of you who use events as well, an event being, I keep going back to that system when I close it down. This one here. Those of you who use events, we've got any events on there? Of course we haven't. Those of you who use events, an event is a group of opportunities that has something in common. Okay, so I can click on an event, and when you go into the event, if I had opportunities against it, I could then see down the left-hand side, I'll be able to see reports, and it would report on all. The report would be across all of those opportunities. Here's the reports page. Obviously, there's no opportunities linked to this event, which is why it's all blank. But you would see the ethnicity distribution for all volunteers on any opportunity which is linked to this event. So an event is a group of opportunities that are linked together. For example, the event might be Glastonbury. The opportunity might be setting up equipment. I don't know, handing out refreshments, cleaning up litter, blah, 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 blah. Different opportunities, starting in at different times. But because they're all linked to the same event, it means that I can go to the event and I can do a report across all of just those opportunities. So for those user events, that can be very useful.
Steve, who is it who links the event? So if a provider, does go for 3 different opportunities for I don't know, a theatre event or something, do they have to link those, or would I do that as kind of super admin to the site?
Well, as the person who creates the event can define who can add opportunities to it. So as an admin, when you create an event, when you put in the title, I think it's like 2 fields down from the title, it says, yeah, who can add opportunities to it? Is it admins only, or are you allowing the providers to add their opportunities to it as well? Generally, what I tend to find is, if an admin is creating opportunities, then they create the event and they add their opportunities to that event. If providers can create events as well. They can create an event and they add their own opportunities to that event. That's what you tend to find. Every now and again, you might find a situation where an admin will create an event and allow, like, a summer volunteering a festival or something like that, and they might allow their providers to actually add their opportunities to that particular event. But it's very rare. I've only heard of it a couple of times.
We find that they just don't get used. But what I keep thinking is that they appear in the weekly emails to the volunteers, like any events that are coming up, and it just seems like a missed opportunity that more people aren't using it.
Yeah, I mean, you usually have to kind of let them know, because there's no way for them to know that you've created an event. So you create an event, they need to know that they can add that opportunity to that particular event. And the case is normally they can't. The case is, if you create an event, it's for you and your opportunities that you're running internally. So are you saying that you're creating an event for external providers to create opportunities that you'd want them to be able to add it to that event that you've created?
I haven't done it yet, but I did consider doing it when we did the big help out, because I thought, well, if I create the big help out as an event, then everybody who's recruiting specifically for those things or doing events or whatever could then add it to it. But I just feel like the providers that we have on the system don't realize it's an option. They don't understand enough about it, and if I'm honest, I don't feel like I understand it enough either to kind of advise them at the moment. So it's just something that I feel like I need to explore some more, because it feels like a missed opportunity.
I would be inclined. Yeah, I see where you're coming from now, and that's a good use of it. I can understand that. It's a sensible use of it. I'd be inclined in that scenario as an admin to say, okay, well, I've created this event, and I'm going to look through when the opportunities, when I authorize them, I'm going to check them and say, should this be part of that event? And you can add them to the event yourself. I'd be inclined to do that a bit myself. Then you've got control of it as well that way.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not got weird opportunities appearing against an event which is completely unrelated. So I'd do that myself.
Thank you. That's helpful.
No worries. So what do we get down to? Measuring success. That's what we're doing, weren't we? I think measuring success. Okay, so the measuring of success. So we know there's the obvious way of measuring success, which is when you log into the system, you look at the bottom line, okay, and it says how many volunteers? 250. I only had 50 at the start of the year, and I got 250. Success, yay. You could say how many providers? Wow, I've got an extra 6 providers this month. Brilliant, yay. So you've got different obvious ways where you might measure success. The logging of hours is provider logged hours. It doesn't say it always means provider logged hours. That's the one the reports always use. Is obviously a key one. Okay. I mean, ideally, if you were going to measure success, you'd say, well, okay, I want to know what the impact is on the ground of all this litter picking or all this, whatever the opportunities were. I want to know what the impact is on the ground. But obviously, that's very hard, near on impossible to do, to measure that. You know. But so what the next best thing is, okay, then, well, how many hours have volunteers done for these particular opportunities? That tends to be a good measure. Give me a second. I think someone's trying to. Someone got the hand up.
No, but I have to go. Actually, I've got another meeting at 12, so I'm gonna have to leave now.
Yeah, we're near the end, but okay, that's no problem at all.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, no worries at all.
Bye-bye.
So, can anyone think of any ways? How would you measure the success of your volunteer program? You think? How would you do it? I mean, think even outside the system. Forget about TeamKinetic. How would you measure the success of your volunteer program? It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do.
How many volunteers have signed up? How many students have signed up to volunteer for me? Because I work at university.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, the number of sign-ups, that's obviously a key thing. Yeah. I mean, the main ones I could say are sign-ups, login of hours. You could say, I mean, a measurement of success is usually what's achieved by the volunteering being done. That's usually, so you say, well, how can I measure that? Like, as I said before, which goes back to the login of hours. You could say how many people land on the site is a measurement of success. But then you're saying, well, really, if 100 people land on the site, but only one of those people volunteers, then, you know, it's the success is that one volunteer. The 99 people is not a measure of success who registered and decided not to do anything. So, yeah, so it's a hard one. There's no right or wrong answer for that. But it tends to be, like I say, the login of hours and registrations tend to be a key one. Someone else got the hand? I keep hearing pings. Hand up. Okay, marketing and comms. So we have, this is a really interesting one here, opportunity searches. Okay, so if you're logged in as admin, there's my admin page, and I'll go to reporting, reports and analysis, like your main reporting library. Okay, and down here, we've got under opportunities, we have website searches. Okay, and this has been searched on here, but what you see on your system when you go to this is you're going to see a list of the top 20 search terms, okay, that have been typed into the search bar, into the volunteers search bar. As it loads up, okay, into the search bar here. Okay. So whether they do it before logging in, after they log in, it makes no difference. It's going to appear within the website searches here. Okay, I wish I could have something to show you, but if you, so why is that useful? Hazard a guess. Why would it be useful to see what volunteers are typing into the search bar?
I was just thinking how it links with tags, because I've just looked at mine and I've got a lot of COVID, COVID-19, C19, that kind of stuff. And I'm just thinking, well, if they're searching those terms, I need to make sure that the opportunities are tagged with the terms that people are doing. That's probably not what you were going to say, Steve, but that's just where my mind went.
Exactly what I was going to say. You're like a plant, not in the, not the growth, but like that's exactly what I was going to say. I couldn't have. Yeah. So if you didn't get that, then yeah, think about it. It's really, really useful. So you can say, well, okay, then if I know people are typing in the word, top word is soccer, for example, and I know I've got 5 football opportunities on there, none of them are tagged with the word soccer, then someone's typing in the word soccer and no opportunities are going to come up in their search results. So I know by looking at it, well, if I just tag those with the word soccer, then that volunteer, those volunteers, which I know are typing in that word, so I can see it from this report, then I know that I can go in there and just retag those opportunities, and then those opportunities will appear. Those football opportunities will appear when they type in the word soccer. So it allows you to close a loop. You're not only creating opportunities, but you'll be able to retag those opportunities with the words that you know people are typing in. That is the key purpose of it, I would say. There's one other purpose with the website searches, which is this report here, which is it's not only about retagging opportunities, but also informing you of what things the volunteers are interested in. Like you might go on there and say, oh God, it says the top search word is litter. I don't know why I keep sticking by litter today. Litter picking. And you say, well, litter is the top search word. Have we got any litter picking opportunities? No, we haven't. Do we know any providers? Yes, we do know some providers. So then you can speak to your providers, or maybe even recruit new providers who you know may require that type of volunteering to take place. If you had an opportunity on there, I know volunteers are searching for that. You'll probably get some volunteers on there pretty quick. Okay, so it informs you how to retag your existing opportunities, and also what types of opportunities your volunteers are interested in, even if they don't exist on your system. A really powerful report that. Okay. I've also got volunteers active within certain categories and opportunity tags. Let's just show you quickly what that is. Down here, opportunity tags, you'll see that's going to list all the opportunities, all the tag words and how many opportunities are linked to those particular tags. So there's a number of reports there you can have a look through. If you're ever not sure what the report is, just click on the question mark next to it and it gives you a description. Okay. We've then got reports and analysis op logged hours. Which opportunities are popular? And it says includes views. Maybe there's a data this. Might be interesting. I might learn something here myself. Okay, so reports analysis, opportunities. Let's have a quick look. Opportunities. I need one. I need some with empty field slots. %. No, they haven't put it on there yet. But this is where, so this is basically going to see a list of all the opportunities and see how many slots are filled, how many empty, what percentage have been filled, blah, 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 blah. But I am going to get that added because I really like that idea of how many views against the list of opportunities. Active volunteers, out of all your volunteers who are active, what their kind of, what their distribution is. Another really interesting one there. Okay. Next one's down, we've got marketing success reports. Okay, so that's your application analytics, which I've covered before, you know, the Google Analytics with a big graph on it. And we've also got feedback as well. So it's another thing that your marketing and comms team tend to be interested in. When you go to reporting, go down to your feedback. And here you can see opportunity feedback or volunteer feedback appearing on here. And you can search for it. Okay, if I go to our normal demo system. Okay, if I go to reporting, reporting and down to feedback. Okay, so I can see here opportunity feedback. So this is feedback the providers have left on the volunteers, and volunteer feedback, obviously self-explanatory. You can sort this by different things. You can even search for particular words and say, I want to use the word great in this post that I'm going to do. So I need a quote which includes the word great. There's no greats in there. You get the idea. Pick the word that's on there, shouldn't I? See what we got in here. Oh, great day. Maybe on the provider side. That's wrong. You get the idea anyway. It comes up with the word great day. So I can say, brilliant. I'm going to use that great day by Robin. I'll speak to Robin and I'll say, it's okay to use your quote, and I'll put it on there and put it on the poster. So good for your comms kind of posters and comms messages that you're firing out. We've got specific queries. Okay, so this is your, if you need to know which volunteers meet a specific criteria. So you're not looking across the board, like show me every volunteer and, you know, how many, you know, which ones have been active, blah, blah, blah. If you're looking for volunteers that meet a specific criteria, like how many volunteers are male and over the age of 25 and have joined this type of opportunity, then you can do those kind of reports. And they are a form of report. You do them within the search volunteers page. Okay. And you do it by using these filters here. Does anyone use these filters on here? No?
Yeah, I have. They've been really useful sometimes.
Yeah, I can be very useful. Yeah, if you don't use them, certainly have a look at them because you're going to find them really useful, I'd imagine. Okay, so the way it works is you have a filter here. We get rid of the default one by name. You have a filter here, and I say, okay, I want to find everyone where the age is more than 21. Brilliant. Shows me volunteers with the age is more than 21. And there's 255 volunteers who are over the age of 21. I could say, okay, where the gender is male. Okay, 139 are over the age of 21 and male. This middle one here, and I could add more and more things on there. Obviously, I could say show me people from a particular, ethnicity or particular area, whatever it is. I could search someone here. This first filter box here allows you to decide whether the volunteers have to match both criteria or either criteria. So at the moment it says match all, so they have to be more than 21 and male, which is why it says 139. If I said match any, then they have to be over 21 or male, which obviously the number is going to be larger than 139, 255. Okay, so that's what this first column is. There's some really interesting ones in here, just to let you know. You can say, show me volunteers where the date they last logged in. Let me get rid of these age ones and gender ones. Where the date they last logged in was before, let's say 6 months ago. Okay. Click on search, and that's going to show me every volunteer that has not logged in for 6 months. Why is that useful? Well, you could select them all and send an email to them and put them in a group, whatever you want to do. Fire off an email and try and re-engage with those volunteers. There's also filters, which are the ones, which volunteers are in particular groups, which volunteers have joined a particular type of opportunity. That was always a really interesting one. Join category, that's what it is. So show me all volunteers who have joined, once this loads up, join volunteers of opportunities of a particular category, and choose sport, for example. Okay, all these volunteers must be interested in sport. I'll send an email to them about this new sport opportunity or sporting event that's happening. It's a very, very powerful tool page here. We've also got our geographical reports. So reporting, maps. Where do the volunteers come from? It takes a while to load up when I'm streaming a video at the same time. Put it on here. I've got a picture on here, everyone. No, I haven't. Do it again. I think it's just that test system there. Okay, so I'm reporting to this is the maps report. So from here, you see a map of your area. It's going to be centralized. The map's going to be centered on where your organization is located when you first set up the system. And you can say, show me where all volunteers are. It shows where they are, and you can zoom in, and those numbers will get smaller and smaller till you hit individual green people. That means basically one person. If I click on it, I can see who that person is. And I can even click on their name, and it will take me through to their profile page. You can see everything they've done, opportunities they've been on, and the rest of it. I can also see where my opportunities are. Okay, I've got an opportunity there. And it says there's one volunteer, and I can say map them, and it shows me where that volunteer's come from to get to that particular opportunity. This is sometimes interesting to see the distribution of volunteers, how far they're willing to travel, how many are from your area, how many from outside your area, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and also seeing your opportunities. It's good if you're trying to find what we call black spots, so where you've got no opportunities but lots of volunteers. Okay, you think, well, maybe is there any providers in that area? I could tell them, well, there's lots of volunteers on your doorstep. Maybe you want to, try and recruit the provider and get them to create some local opportunities. Or you can do it the other way around. You say there's loads of opportunities and no volunteers. You say, well, is there any colleges or universities in that area? Maybe I should go along to a freshers fair because we've got loads of opportunities on their doorstep. If I can just recruit some volunteers from that area. Okay, so that's your geographical reports. Custom reports, last couple now. So with your custom reports, like I say, that's a report which is very specific to you. That's kind of a last resort. If you can't find the information or the report that you're looking for, then you can request a custom report from ourselves, and they would appear within custom reports down here somewhere. Okay. And once we've created the report for you, there is a cost with it, as you'd imagine. It's usually £250 a report, depending on the report. But once we create that report, you've got access to throughout that report from now until, you know, whenever. So it's up to you. You have to pay each time you use it. You've just got full-time access to it then. So that's your custom reports. We've also got downloading data. So at any point, you can always download the data from your system, whether it's all volunteer data, all provider data, or opportunity data, like a list of all opportunities, how many volunteers are on those opportunities, all that kind of stuff. So downloading to Excel. It says CSV file. For those of you who don't know, that's pretty much guaranteed going to open up in Excel on your PC. Okay, and discrepancies in data. So sometimes, so what do we mean by that? It's a bit of kind of IT jargon, that, isn't it? Discrepancies in data. Okay, it's when sometimes you'll look at a report and you'll say, oh, it says, someone mentioned one at the start actually. They said, well, the top line of data doesn't always match the bottom line, no matter how wide I make the date ranges. There's a discrepancy in data. And it's usually down to these two reasons. It's usually down to the fact that volunteers been removed, so they're anonymized. They're looking at one report, which is showing them all kind of active volunteers, but then they're trying to reconcile that to another report, which is showing all volunteers, even the ones that have been removed, have been deleted for whatever reason, removed, anonymized. Okay, so obviously they're not going to reconcile. The other reason they don't reconcile, I tend to find, is just misunderstanding the terminology. So the most frequent one is the word active volunteer. So they say, well, it says, you know, I've looked at it and I've got active volunteers within this particular quarter. And they say, why doesn't it match that number over there? It says, well, your definition of what an active volunteer doesn't match that report's definition of what an active volunteer is. So the numbers are not going to match up. Okay, so just be aware of them. There is reasons, and it's usually one of those two reasons why things can't be reconciled. And that's it. Is there any questions over anything that I've covered here today?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So if a volunteer decides on a role and it says apply through our website, would it still be reflected in the report if they're going to an external website?
So if they're applying for an opportunity.
So they go to the portal, they see the opportunity, and on the opportunity it says, I might be getting this really wrong, but they go to the opportunity, it says go to our website to apply.
Ah, okay.
How do we report that?
It wouldn't. No, it wouldn't report. It will report on the other system, so it will report on the provider's system, because it's the provider logged hours that all the reports always look at. So for those of you didn't understand that, so if you've got two systems, they can be linked together, and quite a lot of our customers they're linked together, so they have an opportunities created on this system and it's shared on this system, and vice versa. Okay, that can be the case. And when if somebody, a volunteer here, joins one of these opportunities over here and logs hours, saying, well, should it appear over here on this system here? And it won't. It will appear on the second system, because that's where the provider belongs to, that second system, and we always report on the provider logged hours. Because what you'd find, the reason why we do that as well, Mayor, is otherwise you find double counting. So a lot of our time we have people who have multiple systems linked together, and they all want to report. You'll obviously want reports for their system, but then there's also a group report where they say, okay, then I want to see, you know, how much reporting's been gone across all these systems. In which case that creates double counting if you do that. So we have to kind of assign, it only can be counted on one system, it can't be counted on both. So yeah, so it will be recorded on one, but only one of those systems.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay, well, if there's no other questions, what I'm going to do is, just in case you didn't get it,
I've got one, Steve. Sorry, I couldn't
sure.
get off mute in time. Is there a way, I've already raised this, I think, before, so I think I know what your answer is going to be. But when I've emailed like all providers or all volunteers on the system, at the moment, there's currently no way to know how many are received apart from volunteers, because obviously they can unsubscribe from emails. So when we're emailing providers, is there a way of getting a report that says, you know, you've got 650 providers and we know that, you know, we didn't, because obviously, you know, it will tell you if they don't get through. So is there a way of going, and 500 of those were received? Is that, it's not built in now, but could it be built in the future?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's something I've requested. So what you're talking about, so if as an admin, I can create a bulk email. Okay, that's just for volunteers, which is, I know, and that's probably what you're about to say. for volunteers. And I create a bulk email. I always added it on. You might do a group email for providers.
I already do it. I send about one a month to all my providers, but I don't know how many are actually
missing on
receiving
there
it.
is that stat there. Is how many recipients. So when you're doing it for a volunteer, so that's what I've requested about to add that in there. So when you email to a volunteer, you put in the title, you put in the description, blah 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 blah, and then you put in some restrictions. Okay, if you wanted to, you might say only volunteers who are in this volunteer group or whatever it is. Okay, if I click on this one here, basic onboarding role, there's 4 volunteers in that group. I click on it. Now there's only 1 recipient. I say, why is there only 1 recipient then? Well, it's because 3 of them have opted out of receiving bulk emails. Okay, so you've got, that does tell you before you send it how many people are actually going to receive it. So you got phase 1 is it sent out from TeamKinetic? Okay, that's that first question, and this is what it's telling you. Yes, if it's showing you how many recipients here, if I click on the send button down here, then it's going to send it to 1 recipient in this particular example at the moment because of restriction. Now it's going to send it to 117 recipients. Okay, that's sending it. Now, what I've requested that same thing to be put onto the provider side so you can see how many providers would receive it. Okay, now the second part is just because you've sent off an email to somebody, okay, do you know whether they've actually received it or not? Much harder to do. Now, there is a report in here under reporting. Where is it? There's one which shows bounce backs. Messaging, here it is. Email failure report. So you can see bounce backs from here. Okay, and you can select and say it comes up as one of the columns in here. This out of all the emails you've sent out, you'll see whether it's been fired up from TeamKinetic. It's great. They're a recipient. It's been sent to, but maybe it's got to an email address that no longer exists. Maybe the person's left that organization and it doesn't no longer exist. In which case, you can get bounced back, and you can see that within this bounce back report once it loads up. Take a while to load up there. Okay, so that's one way.
I need to know where that is. I think that sounds like what I'm looking for.
Messaging an email.
Our account's been open since 2017. We're getting loads of bounce backs, but it's only if I email. I mean, I've got 660 providers, so if I sat there and emailed them all separately, it'd take me a good few weeks to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, that's going to be useful. The email failure report. I mean, that will show you. I don't know if it's providers as well. I'll find out whether it's providers as well. Definitely volunteers, and it will show you which ones have been. Like you say, there's no email address that exists for whatever reason. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes people say, well, so I hear this quite often. One of our volunteers didn't receive this email, and then I'll go in and check it. And the reality is, it's always done that phase 1, because you find if it sent it to one of those volunteers, it sent it to all of them. The system's not, no computer's handpicking them out. There's no method to handpick them out. It sent it to all of them on the list. But the question is, why haven't they all received it? And it could be for a multitude of different reasons. One of the key reasons I tend to find is it gets put into a junk folder or a spam folder or something like that. And that's nothing you can do or nothing we can do about that. It's down to the volunteer, their email server setup. Because when we fire an email off to, I don't know, say I send an email to somebody who's got a Hotmail account. Well, that Hotmail server will have a set of rules and say, okay, then I'm receiving this email, and how many people have been copied into it? Okay, 1 person's been copied into it. Is there any dodgy images in there, or anything which could be construed as it could be dangerous? No, it looks perfectly fine. Okay, I'll allow it. So it puts it in the person's inbox. But then that same server might have a rule which says, okay, I've received it, and there's been 150 people copied into this one, and it includes 3 images, and I don't like the look of this. I'm going to put it in the person's junk mail. We don't control what those rules are, and nor can you. It depends on the person's email server that controls that. And even you may not realize this, within all your organizations, your mail server will have its own set of rules. Now, once you found it in the junk mail, you can right click and just say, trust this person, or this is okay. And then in future, any emails will go straight into the inbox. It'll say, oh yeah, but this is from so-and-so a person. So it was trusted last time. So I won't put it in the junk folder anymore. I'll put it in their inbox. But it depends on the email server setup. Okay. So yeah, you just kind of have. But like I say, rule of thumb is if 1 person received it, they've all received it, which means that the person that's gone into the junk mail, I would always say, check your junk mail. And if you find it, whitelist it, which means like right click and kind of trust it. And then you'll be okay moving forward. that answer your question?
Yeah, where can I find the email failure report part on the website?
There, messaging and email.
You're not
failure
sharing
report.
now, Steve, so I
Oh,
can't
sorry,
see.
sorry. Messaging and email. Yeah, I'll share. Messaging and email, and then email failure report.
Okay, cool. I'll have a look at that. Thank you.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. If you can see this, messaging and email failure report there. Don't know if I'm sharing it, but that's where it is. Yep. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. If no other questions, thank you for your time. I hope you found some of those nuggets of information useful. And yeah, anything that pops to mind you're not sure about, feel free to open a chat with it, or a support ticket or something like that. And yeah, I'll be happy to help out. If not, have a lovely day.
Great, thank you.
You take care.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.